We're going to go ahead and get started a little early. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Staked Podcast. It has been a little while since we've had one of these, but we're very excited today. Have a special guest, Chris Wood. He is the Chief Operating Officer at Pixelmatic, a gaming developing company that is working on AAA title game, Infinite Fleet. And so we have, without further ado, hello, Chris.
Hello. Hi, Eduardo. How's it going?
Good, good. I didn't mean to. I took you off. There we go. Wait, let me see if I can get us both in here. There we go. I like being on the left side, so you have to be on the right. Sorry.
That's your side of the bed, is it, Eduardo?
Yes, it
right?
is.
We're getting off to a good start.
Well, welcome. To start off, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background? What did you do before Pixelmatic? How did you end up at Pixelmatic? And just take it away.
Sure thing. Yeah, no worries. So for the past 10 years, I've been in China. I came pretty much straight out of university, and I started where most people do, really, which is teaching when you first come to Shanghai. And so I taught for a little while, and then became an operations director for the training center that I was at, managing a whole bunch of different schools, starting franchises across China and such like that. And then I met Samson Mo eventually through Sunny Alves Diaz, our CTO. And Samson at the time was making making Infinite Fleet, but it was very much at a conceptual stage. So it was really just some drawings and some ideas and something. Infinite Fleet was very much his passion project. Samson, actually, sorry, I've just realized that people might not know who he is. He's a big influencer in the Bitcoin space, at Excellion on Twitter.
People who are watching this definitely know who he is.
Yeah, I thought they would. So I just, yeah, that's a fair point. Yes. So when I met Samson, he was working as the COO of BTC China, which was at the time a massive exchange, and also running Pixelmatic as well in the same building. And I got kind of brought on as a part-time game designer because it was only conceptual, and I was this big gamer since I was 4 years old. I've just loved games. I've always been a massive nerd with that kind of thing. And he brought me on as a part-time game designer just to get things going. And it was kind of, no one had really been driving the project at that time. It was just a few ideas thrown around, and Pixelmatic was mostly doing outsource work for example, a game, Vainglory, which is a massive mobile MOBA game across East Asia. We were running their technical operations. And I realized that Infinite Fleet didn't have too much direction at that time. So I sat down with Samson in Starbucks and said, what's the deal here? Really trying to get into his mind, really trying to pull out what his baby was. Do you know what I mean? We were trying to really carve this thing out. And he turned around, and at the time I was still teaching, he turned around and said, "Hey, do you want to come on as a project manager?" And I was like, yes. So I quit my job the next day, and I was like, right, I am all in. I am absolutely all in. And of course, obviously working with Samson, being in that environment, I learned about Bitcoin, which was really quite funny because I think it was in 2013, a friend of mine, a teacher, had invested a lot in Bitcoin, a lot. And we sat down for a beer, and he was like, "You need to invest in this thing. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be huge." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, whatever, man. Blah blah blah. Fuck it. It's all shit. Whatever."
Yeah.
Being the pessimistic British man that I am. And now he's retired at. He's younger than me. I think he's 30. Bastard.
Seems like that seemed to end up pretty okay for him then.
Oh no, he did very well. Yeah. He's just chilling in the States right now. I don't know what he's doing now, but he totally retired off Bitcoin. He invested a lot at a very early stage, and he hodled all the way through. I mean,
well deserved.
People say it's easy, but I don't think it's easy to hodl through some of those.
Surely not.
Tides.
So that's really interesting. So you meet Samson, and you're working as a teacher. Then you kind of go through this almost like I guess, conceptualization stage, or like really trying to get into the creative mind of, Samson's brainchild, if you will.
Yeah,
So, what were some of your favorite games that you like to play growing up? Um, and
right.
then how would you say, those experiences, and then also Samson's favorite games, how have those impacted maybe the way you guys started building um, Infinite Fleet, from that early stage?
Yeah, well, I've my two main genres have been RTS and RPG. I love Final Fantasy and all that kind of thing, and I love RTSs like Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War, Command and Conquer, all those kind of things. And it turned out that Samson had previously been the producer at, I believe he was the producer on Dawn of War, or he might have been a game. He was the balance lead on Dawn of War, and he was an executive producer on Company of Heroes, which were just massive RTS games. And I was just simping at that point, you know. But for Samson and for us really when we were kind of pulling this whole thing apart, what we realized is that RTS games, real-time strategy games, they have this kind of 30-minute window where you play a battle and it's kind of over. StarCraft or whatever, you PvP 20-30 minutes and it's done, and that's okay. You've got a really good tactical experience, very strategic, very fast experience that's a lot of fun. But what we wanted was more. We wanted this kind of like immersive environment, in space, where you can carve your own legacy, where you can own planets and space stations and go into the depths of space, explore black holes and nebula, and also have these combat encounters that are really high-paced, frantic, and exciting. It's almost like, did you ever play? I don't know if you're much of a gamer, Eduardo, but did you ever play Destiny, for example?
I did not play Destiny. I am a gamer, but I was definitely more of a Nintendo nerd.
Fair
Some
play.
couple
Yeah.
PlayStation games, so like couple of the Final Fantasy games. But no, I don't think I played Destiny.
Sure. Well, Destiny is like a first-person shooter game, like a Call of Duty or something like that. But it's got this longer-term sort of story that goes with it. It's an MMO. It's a massively multiplayer online game where lots of people play together, and these action sort of points, these sort of action vignettes that happen as such, are lasting and continue. And that's kind of what we aim with Infinite Fleet. These battles that may happen will continue to reverberate throughout the future of the game. So the main USP, the thing that really pulled me into this project and made me quit my job and start the next day, was the idea of this directed narrative, we call it. So in our game, there'll be these big raids, these big events where thousands of players play together to, let's say, for example, defend Earth against these alien invaders. And the community has to really rally and fight back. And if they fail, then Earth could be destroyed, and that would be written into the story forever for the rest of the game. And that would, we would become this nomadic race exploring and trying to find a new home in the stars. And that's something that really has not been done before. Some games have attempted this, or have certainly marketed this. A game like Mass Effect, maybe your audience or yourself are familiar with, where they say, oh, your choices really matter. Well, for us, we really want to lean into that, like heavily, that the raids, the events, they have a massive lasting impact. These things happen once, and then the path A or the path B is where the story goes.
That's super interesting. So I remember reading an article when I was doing my research that talked about, um, Pixelmatic wanting to be at the forefront of like machine learning. Is that like kind of
Mm.
related in a sense, in terms of, because it seems like basically what you're saying is it's a game whose narrative is determined by the outcome of the real time events. And so that seems like it's a game with like how real life is, like limitless possibilities almost, but then like maybe these
Yeah.
certain moments that like really end up defining sort of the paths that you end up taking. But it's like the whole community
Yeah.
takes that path. So that's what's like super interesting.
Indeed. Well, there's a couple of there's a couple of points there. So I'll start with the latter end, and then we'll go to the machine learning. You have to be realistic as well. You can't say, okay, so we're going to have thousands of branches along these trees, and anything can happen. That's a promise that we're not giving, because you can't do that. You need tens of thousands of developers, probably a lot more, to do something like that. What we are saying is, yes, there's this sandbox of a galaxy of where things can go. We will put raids in there. We will have a specific one. Okay, so there's a battle for Earth coming. That's going to happen, and then whether the players succeed or fail, we'll branch off the story from there. Right, in a sort of near-term view. So, for example, we won't know what really happens very long-term, but we will in the short-term, if you see what I mean. It's an A or B. Or little things like, let's say, stealth technology somehow gets discovered on some remote planet because a player finds some artifact somewhere. We didn't have stealth before, so that player then can spread that to the United Sol Federation, the sort of the good guys, shall we say, that you're a part of, and then you'll be known as the person that discovered that in the annals of history.
Okay, this is a great time for me to interrupt, because I really want to start to kind of get into what is Infinite Fleet. Obviously, we've been talking about it, but I'm trying to the gameplay, right? That's what I really want to talk about as well. So the storyline, it seems like there's like a good group, a bad group, and do players get to choose between those two factions, or are there multiple different like races? Like, what does it look like, coming into the game?
In the first place, you will have one faction. It will be one team. You're on the side of humanity. We're calling it the United Sol Federation. The United Sol Federation is essentially an army, a military organization as such, that defends a number of different factions of humanity. Citadels, we call them, of course, because we're Bitcoiners. And so, but in future, down the line, yes, there will be choices and there will be PvP later. But we're very careful about scope. So there's a lot of people in the industry who promise a hell of a lot. You know what I mean? We're gonna do this. We're gonna have AR, VR. We're gonna have PvP, PvE. We're gonna do everything. It's like when you're a game developer, you have to be very careful with your resources. Making an MMO is a big project. You know what I mean? We're raising money right now. I'm sure we can talk about that a bit later. But we're raising 15 million, and that's really small as a budget for an MMO game. Okay, so the way we're doing it is very iteratively. We're starting with a very narrow scope. We're saying this is our core loop. This is what makes this game really fun and people are going to really love it. And then we expand it from there with new releases as we go. And then, of course, 10 years down the line, maybe we'll have VR. Maybe people will have fighter jets flying through in VR headsets. That could happen. But that's not on our roadmap right now, right? We're focusing on the core loop of the game. It's very important to do that, we think.
Yeah, I like that strategy, because it takes, sort of like a very engineer approach, I'd say, almost like, you create a product, and then also kind of that Silicon Valley, like product market fit, like very core group. So I think it's probably very prudent of you guys. So in this first version of the game, we've kind of already talked about it. The Citadels, obviously there's going to be a Bitcoin component to this game. Maybe let's just jump into the crypto components, because there's a couple different tokens that are associated with Pixelmatic. Maybe you can start by talking about Exordium and the relationship between Exordium and Pixelmatic, and the security token offering, and then get into the INF game currency, and then Bitcoin after that.
Okay, right, we've got a big one. Let's do this thing. Okay, so Exordium is a game publisher. Okay, we have a development contract with Pixelmatic. We're independent companies, but we're very close, on the personal level. So the intention for Exordium, of course, is to publish Infinite Fleet. It's the magnum opus, the first driving flagship product as such. But the long-term view, of course, is that it is a publisher that will publish many, many games.
Exordium will publish many, many games.
That's the plan. Yes, that's absolutely the plan. We're taking a kind of Valve made Steam. So what they did was they started with games like Counter-Strike, Half-Life, and just really great games that people loved. And I remember when I first played Half-Life, they asked me to download Steam, and I'd never seen this kind of platform before. And I was like, oh, what's this rubbish that I have to go through? Well, whatever, fine, I'll do it. Didn't think twice about it. Now I have over 200 games on Steam. you know.
Super interesting. Super interesting.
Yeah. So that's the plan. We're focusing on Infinite Fleet, but down the line, Exordium will widen up. Now, you mentioned the security token offering. I'm not sure, of course, how familiar your audience is with security tokens, but essentially it is a tokenized security, right? So we're doing two offerings, one in the US, one in the EU or rest of world offering, we call it, but we'll focus on the US for now. We oversubscribed our seed round of over 3.1 million, raising a Reg D 506C offering to accredited investors, basically, who could invest in our products. So, obviously, accredited investors could invest in Exordium. And we are now planning to register for a Reg A, which will allow for public investment. And what that means is that the shares, our securities as such, represent shares in our company. And anyone who invests and buys these tokens, every year they get an annual net profit dividend, essentially. So the success of the company will be shared with the owners of the EXO token. And the security token has this portability. You can take it onto exchanges and things and get early liquidity. But it's not like an ICO. So security tokens are highly regulated. It is a security. We were going through the SEC.
Yeah.
So everything is above board. We have to do annual audits. We have to kind of open the kimono to our public investors as such. So it's not like, we're just kind of minting a coin and saying, okay, buy this and hope that it goes up. This is, it's essentially buying a stock in a way. So you have, like I say, the annual dividend, you've got that liquidity should you wish. And if we were to, get bought out by Tencent or something, then that capital would also be shared amongst EXO token holders. So that's basically it. It's essentially just a stock, a share in our company.
So a couple follow-up questions there, and hopefully you can answer these questions. Sure. Like, when will the public sale be in the US, or like when would those be able to be bought on, sort of a Fidelity account or something like that? And then right. This question comes from the audience. Can we expect to see EXO token on an exchange other than INX?
So I can't really fully, I can't announce things that have, that we haven't kind of announced yet. Unfortunately, I have to be a little bit guarded about that. But the point is, we are registering with the SEC with the Reg A. It takes time to go through regulators. We don't have a specific timeline because it's kind of out of our hands. It really depends on them and how long it takes on their side. I'm sure there'll be some back and forth, but I expect it's going to be a matter of months. Ideally, it'll be before the end of this year, but we really can't say because. Sure. It's really in the hands of the SEC. So yeah, that's certainly for the American side. On the EU side, we split this up for jurisdictional reasons because obviously sure. The regulations are more strict in the US. But on the EU side, yes, we're also raising over there. And it's in a public offering right now through a company called Stocker.io. And that's going very well. We have over 800 investors so far. And things are looking pretty good. So yeah, we've got some things coming up, but I'm just kind of itching to talk about it, but I kind of can't. So yeah, we'll just watch this space is what I'll say. Yeah. Sign up to the newsletter, everybody, because there's exciting things on the way.
Perfect.
In a matter of a month or two.
Can you say something real quick?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Can't hear me? Oh. Uh-oh.
Say something again.
Hello?
Can you hear me? I hear you now. Apologies. Oh, nope, I don't hear you again. Yep, say something.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I do hear you now. So there should be like a little settings wheel, essentially, on your screen.
I'm just using that, and it seems to be just automatically cutting off to a different microphone somehow. So that's strange.
Okay.
Anyway,
yeah, no,
we're there now.
I'm glad that I understand that why, because that happened a couple days ago with the other interviewer. So now I know it's a software issue. But I'll look into that. Thank you. Yes. So next was you were going to tell us about the INF currency.
Right, indeed. So the INF currency is the in-game currency of Infinite Fleet. It's not something that you will buy from us. It's not, we're not raising money off it. We're not doing an ICO or anything like that off INF. You will earn this currency like in most of the games, really, by taking part. By mostly for us, it's going to be taking part in these big events and raids, and people who do particular actions or become the MVP or whatever it will be rewarded with INF tokens. And the use for INF is to trade peer to peer. So we have a marketplace in our game which will allow for trade of digital items, NFT ships and things, but also the INF token has portability. So the idea is, of course, you could take it elsewhere onto other platforms and things like that. But as I was also mentioning, Exordium is intending to be a publisher of a number of games. We also expect INF to be driving a lot of that. So being a currency that powers transactions between other games as well that are on the platform. So really, for us, what I really want to stress with the INF currency is that you don't need MetaMask, you don't need any DApp or anything like that to get it. The user flow is, I download the game from Steam or directly from our website, play the game. I've got my own, account. Everyone's got a game account for any game they play, and then take part in some raid, get the INF reward in my account, which is also basically a digital wallet. We're kind of hiding the blockchain from view. The digital wallet is actually linked to the game account and also a companion app. And you just play. So for most average gamers, they never need to even think about the crypto side of it at all. It acts just like an in-game currency like V-Bucks or anything else. It's only for the people who are into the crypto side or people who do want to sort of venture down the rabbit hole as such that can get those benefits. And that's up to them. You know what I mean? We offer that as an option. We're not even monetizing from that side of it really at all. It's just something that we're giving to players as an option to do, as a feature for them to do. And it's really up to them. So for the average gamer, they don't need to do it. They don't need to touch it. They don't need to care about it. They don't even need to have thought that cryptocurrency exists. But for people who do like crypto, well, they can see the added benefit. And so then what happens is, of course, you'll have these guilds, or we call them divisions, of people that play together. And someone goes, oh, you know what? I just traded this ship for this or that or the other. And someone goes, hey, what's going on there? And they go, let me show you how. And that's how we get adoption.
I think it's so fascinating, because it's like whenever I first ventured down the crypto rabbit hole in 2017, it was because of my gaming background that I understood like how this Bitcoin thing could possibly really work out in the long term. And I say that, man, I'm just like, which way do I even want to take this conversation now? Because the thesis was always like gaming and crypto, right? But the way that you guys have kind of structured and it's like the security token, which like I'm sure that like it's going to allow for some very unique, I guess, like business coordination, and then like interesting ways of like funding development like in the future as well. And then like the alignment between the gamers themselves and the developers and the studio. Like it's just, here's my question. What ways do you see incentives being aligned different in this new business model than from traditional gaming studios?
Well, I think that's a fairly easy question, because the way, originally we were going to do a Kickstarter, right? That's how we were going to raise money. That was always the plan. I even have like an old B-roll sort of Kickstarter video that's very embarrassing. And we went this way because we thought, you know what? When we learned about the technology, when it was coming up, this way our players will share in our profits. They will have shares in our business. They'll be part of it, and not in a sort of, it's not just a token that will offer you some functionality, which obviously a lot of ICOs do, which is fine. For us, we're really taking, we're really, I want to say that quote again, we're really opening the kimono here. You own part of this business, essentially, right? And we have to be transparent. We have to show you our financials. And what does that mean? We've got 800 or so
people are over on Stocker that have invested in us, who talk to us on Discord every day and say, this thing's really cool. Maybe you guys can do this, or maybe you guys can do that, or they'll go and do YouTube videos. They'll go and do I don't know. They become ambassadors for the product, right? They become ambassadors for the game, and we're all totally aligned here, right? If we're successful, then our players are successful at the same time, and I think that's pretty awesome, considering how predatory many game companies have been in recent years. I mean, there's been a lot of bad rep in the gaming industry as of late. Loot boxes and all this kind of thing. Our success is shared by our investors, and that the fact that publicly these will be tradable, like you say, on INX and on other platforms in Europe and the rest of the world in the future. People can buy these shares anytime, and that's no different from sort of Activision Blizzard, I suppose, really. But in the raise in the first place, people can get in at the ground floor. So I think it's pretty exciting. If you could be part of a new MMO that was coming up. For example, there's one called Ashes of Creation that's coming, which looks really cool. I really like the idea of it. They did a Kickstarter, they did very successfully. But if they did a security token, it'd be so awesome because, their success is shared with us, and we can go and spread the love, you know what I mean? We can go and spread the about this game and say, guys, you got to come and play, you got to come and play. So I think it's good. I think it's win-win for everybody, in my opinion. Yeah.
So in the early iterations of the game, the ships will be NFTs, correct?
Yeah, so right now it's not. We haven't rolled it out yet, but it's coming soon. So the ships on the store will be NFTs. They will, but they're not quite yet. We're rolling out that tech. That's going to come in a few months. But yeah, all the ships are NFTs. That's right.
Is that being built on the Liquid sidechain by Blockstream?
Correct. Yes. So the CSO of Blockstream, Samson Mao, is our CEO, Pixelmatic CEO. And so obviously we've got that very strong alignment there between Bitcoin and gaming, of course, because I mean, Pixelmatic's been around since 2011. We're a traditional game studio. Previous to that, Samson was an executive at Ubisoft. And Relic, which yeah. So he comes from a gaming background, right? And so it's a natural alignment. Yeah. Well, I think that's the point because if you look at a lot of the games in the blockchain space, some of them are really cool. You look at, Axie's doing extremely well, right? I mean, they're obviously doing a great job, but there's not yet, at least, more and more, I'm sure, but there's not many sort of traditional developers from a gaming background yet. I think we're at least one of the first ones that have a really strong game development team, like from AAA studios, that have shipped over $1 billion worth of AAA games before. We're a pretty serious game studio in the first place. It's just that we have that alignment with Bitcoin as well. So anyway, back to your original question. I apologize. I went off on a tangent there. Liquid, yes, exactly. So Liquid is a side chain of Bitcoin. We are proponents of Bitcoin. We believe it is the most sort of battle-tested, hardened protocol as such. And Liquid allows for rapid transactions, secure transactions. And now you can mint NFTs. You can make assets off including our Exo token as well. Our security token is off the Liquid network. So it's offered quite a lot of flexibility, whereas I think traditionally, of course, Bitcoiners have mostly been really focused on the underlying asset of Bitcoin, and it being a sort of digital gold or property or whatever it might be. But now we do have some more flexibility with this side chain, which is pegged with Bitcoin. Yeah.
So you and I talked a little bit off camera, and we acknowledged that neither of us are super technical guys, but I would like to discuss a little bit, get a bit understanding about why Liquid Network. I've been interviewing a couple of different blockchain games is gaming studios, what I used to call them, but maybe NFT gaming studios. I don't know. The language is always changing as well, right? But there was other options in terms of I see games being built on Ethereum, like you mentioned, Axie Infinity. There's games being built on Solana, like Star Atlas. And I guess, was it a philosophical thing? Was there, maybe some other reasons as to why Liquid Network? I'm super fascinated by the idea simply because I think like you said with Bitcoin kind of being like this new security architecture for the internet, I think that it does make sense that, a sidechain like Liquid, which I have, a rudimentary understanding about how it works and what it does, like you said, pegged one to one. I know Blockstream's like very like reputable company, sends up satellites, all that good stuff. And so I can see like there being, essentially just like a side chain to Bitcoin that facilitates these rapid transactions. But I'm curious just to hear your answer as to like why Liquid Network.
Well, you mentioned philosophical. I think that's certainly part of it. We are Bitcoiners at heart. I'll be just perfectly honest. And like you said off camera, we said we're not that technical. I'm actually not that well versed in the sort of Solana or Ethereum. I mean, obviously I'm aware of Ethereum and I'm aware of these protocols, but I haven't sort of dug in and really understand them at a very deep level. But Bitcoin for us. Hi, sorry about that. I'm based in Shanghai right now, and sometimes the internet's kind of unstable. So sorry about that. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I hear you perfectly fine. There's no worries. You
Okay.
were just saying about the Liquid Network, though. So just
Go again. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I went on a long monologue there. It was the best thing you'll ever hear, but unfortunately, I won't be able to recreate it. Anyway, so no. Yes, we are Bitcoiners at heart. I mean, we do believe strongly in Bitcoin's sort of longevity and battle tested protocol and all this kind of thing. And Liquid Network, of course, offered a lot of benefits to us, which is of course rapid transactions, minimal fees, and just simplicity. We didn't. It's not a smart contract network. We're going into the sort of technical side of things here, and I might be overstepping my understanding, but we don't really need to architect these highly complex smart contracts or anything like that. It's fairly straightforward to code and implement and just run with, and it is secure. So it really just checks the boxes for us, as well as, of course, the fact that we're just so aligned with Samson being the CSO of Blockstream. So we've got access right there to the team that built this thing. So obviously Blockstream is aligned with us to make sure that Infinite Fleet is essentially commercializing their product and making it pretty strong, right? So I'm sure there are other games on using Bitcoin Network. We've got Light Night as well, which I don't know if you've heard of before. It's kind of like a Fortnite thing, which is also pretty cool.
They're building on Liquid Network as well.
They're building on Lightning, I believe.
Okay.
I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. But I believe that Lightning kind of interacts well with Liquid as well. You can run Lightning on top of Liquid. So we have, quite a lot of flexibility with it. And it just works for our use case. We don't want anything too overcomplicated. Like I say, we are issuing NFTs, we are issuing our Inf Currency and security token. And all of these things are very straightforward. It's just a currency. It doesn't have lots of bells and whistles and everything like it. It doesn't need it. It just has the purpose that it's made for. And we don't intend to plug this and that and the other on it. We just want a very simple case. And it works very well for us.
I really like the structure of your company, and here's why: is because it starts with Bitcoin as the foundation, then it builds a company on top of that, and that company, and then is a gaming company, so it submits itself into the industry that I think is going to benefit the most from cryptocurrency, and then it puts a cryptocurrency inside its first game. Who's to say what other games they put out and what other current super excited. I will definitely be buying shares of EXO whenever it is
awesome
traded in the United States, for real. So and that's just and like you said, it just creates this massive incentive alignment of incentives, And I bought my first ship, so I've already been, we talked about that. I want to talk about the ships a little bit because
let's do it.
I was trying to figure out if I should buy the $80 ship or the $40 ship, and honestly, probably chose the $40 mostly for budgetary reasons. But
sure,
I I want to know, like, how do I know what ships to get? Like, how should I know, like, as I
Yeah.
go about building my fleet, how should I think about it in terms of strategy? Do I want like big bazookas? Do I want some speedsters? Do I want, how should I be thinking? How many ships am I going to bring into battle? Is it an infinite
Yeah.
amount of them? Or am I, like, is it because, like, yeah, so like, and then what happens if my ship is destroyed? Do I lose that ship forever? So, like, I think these are very interesting questions.
Certainly, yeah. So I think you put your finger on something there, which we're building a new iteration of our website that's coming out, in the coming months. And maybe I think you're right. It's not quite clear yet what There's not an easy okay, just buy now, get this one, and you're sorted. And it's not quite clear just yet. But the idea really is that you have one Centurion ship and up to 4 cruisers. Okay. So a Centurion is a ship that you will directly control in sort of a third person, what we call cinematic camera. So you'll use WASD on your fingers to thrust and move and position it and do whatever. The cruisers will follow you. But what you can do then is hit spacebar and go into a tactical camera, which looks a bit more like the God view that is common in a real-time strategy game like Command and Conquer or Homeworld or something like that. And you will then issue commands to your cruisers to go and fight and such like. And in future, we'll have things like formations and all that kind of stuff. So, yes, to answer your question, you want to basically just play the game. You want 1 Centurion and up to 4 cruisers. Right now, we don't have any cruisers on the store because they sold out like hotcakes, and we're now rapidly producing more because they're always limited runs. And at first, we didn't really know what to expect, like how fast they would sell out. The store was only live a few months ago. And so we put 2 cruisers on the store. I think it was 200 run each, or maybe 300, and they just sold out within within a few weeks. And we're like, oh my god, we need to get some more cruisers out there. So we've got more in the pipe. But for now, yes, you bought the Cannon, I believe, yes. 40, which is a Centurion, which you'll be able to manipulate and control, and then later you can augment your fleet with some cruisers.
Okay.
You mentioned the $80 ship. That's like a really sort of special edition kind of premier ship. So it's got a different geometry. It's quite a beautiful skin. It's basically a very beautiful ship, and it's got some cool stats. But it's also a Centurion, so it's more kind of limited edition, exciting kind of thing.
So I might end up going back and buying that one as well, to be honest. And my main question is, or hesitation is, what happens if my ships are destroyed? Do I lose the ship forever?
Yes, I didn't address that. Don't worry, they don't go forever. However, in the future, we intend to have sort of hardcore zones that you can voluntarily go to, sort of high risk, high reward zones, which yes will destroy your ships, but that's up to you to volunteer to go there. We don't want to just kind of force that on players because that's super harsh. Yeah, we just feel like that's just super harsh. I remember,
it's ruthless.
It's absolutely ruthless. It's absolutely ruthless. There's this game, Star Citizen. I don't know if you heard of it. They've been building this game for like 9 years or something. It still hasn't released yet. And you have to buy insurance for your ships in case they get destroyed. No joke, no joke. And we thought, okay, yeah, of course we're a game company. Of course we need to make money. Of course we want to make our investors happy. But at the same time, that's a bit far. That's a bit much.
They basically turn themselves into an insurance broker.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, literally, yeah.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
So funny. Gotta love this industry, man.
You really do. And one thing that I've been really excited about as I've been exploring the industry, in this capacity, which is a lot of fun, interoperability. And I mean, the open source nature of a lot of these protocols is such that, there is a lot of like helping each other out and synergy, and like there's tribes, of course, but like typically you're able to find some people that like have the right alignment of values and incentives where it all works out. And so I'm interested to hear your thoughts generally about interoperability, but then I'd also like to hear maybe you talk about this idea of the metaverse that gets thrown around so much. And like, essentially, what
Right.
does the metaverse look like to you?
I'm gonna be okay. You ever see that meme where it's like unpopular gaming opinion, and there's all these swords at the person's throat from that Tangled Disney show? I think
Yes,
this is going to be that point of the podcast.
that's perfectly fine.
I think the metaverse is a buzzword.
Okay.
In all fairness, in all honesty, look, since Baldur's Gate in 2001, I think, or two, something like that, we've had the capacity to move items across games. Like you could have a save file from Baldur's Game 1 and bring it onto Baldur's Game 2. I don't think the blockchain solves anything here, in my opinion. And this is, feel free to please do push back on me. But if you take a look at I can't think of an example, but there's some products here that are saying, oh, you know what, you can move your, let's take Infinite Fleet, for example, you can move your spaceship in from this game into that game, right? And it's like, okay, so how's my cruiser going to fit into CryptoKitties or into a high fantasy Lord of the Rings game or something like that? The way it works is that the developer opens it up and allows it to be that open source and allows those things in. That the developer has control. Now, of course, with an NFT, you can take that onto different platforms. And yes, if you do allow people to, if we allowed in our terms of service that we say, yeah, anyone can take our IP and render our ships, then that could happen. But that's a developer's choice. That's always been there. The blockchain doesn't solve that. The developer has to choose whether or not they will allow game assets to be interoperable between each other. So I think it's more a terms of service case. I think when people say true ownership, it depends on what you mean by ownership. If you mean true ownership in terms of being able to essentially sell an item that you've already bought or trade it with another person P2P, yeah, that's absolutely perfectly reasonable. But to say, oh, I can take this item and one day it'll be rendered somewhere else or in some other game. It's like, well, yeah, only if the game company still exists and is rendering, because the models aren't on the blockchain. It's only the keys to the ship. It's not the ship itself. You have the key to the asset. The asset isn't rendered on the blockchain. I mean, again, I'm not a highly technical person here. I might be totally wrong, and there's going to be a whole lot of people like, oh, you're talking rubbish here. But blockchains are slow, right? As far as I'm aware. And I don't see, I see that there could be a consortium of developers that agree that many assets will go between each other. I think Engine does this, right? Which is a really cool idea and it's great. But yeah, the developers have to agree. It's still centralized in a sense because the developers have to agree, right?
For sure.
They will render or will not render the ship.
So if I'll create some pushback then, because
please do. Yes.
My thought there is essentially it's about like permissioned versus permissionless, and you're right in saying like the developers are always in control. But I think that what's emerged because of Ethereum's just the best example to talk about. Let's not discuss other layer ones, but what has essentially emerged is like the platform, the technology for permissionless transfer of gaming items, right? And so yes. I think that there will be a subset of developers and gamers, and I think that like essentially we've kind of see this already play out, at least in terms of like level 1, which is like Decentraland's ability to like capture some of these other
yes, that's good, yeah,
games. And it seems like it's possible that I haven't played Crypto Voxels, but it seems like it's possible still that like some metaverses or metaverse to me a metaverse is anything that is like like RuneScape was a metaverse. Like to me a metaverse is somewhere like it's a little bit different than like playing on an Xbox. No, it's not necessarily, because you could be in a metaverse playing on an Xbox. It's a little bit different than playing, let's say, like Pokemon, right? Pokemon's not a metaverse. To me, a metaverse is like something where like I enter into this world. And so if like I'm entering into Decentraland and I had been playing Ever Dragons, I don't even know if that game is still being built, but they were an early like Ethereum game, that was supposed to be a compatible thing. And so I could take my dragon because it's all, and so the permissions would be under. You're right. The developers would have to say, all right, we're allowing ever dragons
Yeah,
in. So at the same
yeah,
time, I guess they could be like, yeah, we're not going to let these people in. Maybe
yeah.
that's possible, is what you're saying. But
Well, what I'm saying is, like, I mean, because yes, I mean, so if a whole bunch of if a whole consortium of developers agree to do this, which they are, then yes, it's creating some kind of metaverse as such. But it doesn't mean that if those consortium of developers for whatever reason failed, then you know. Let me try and think of an example. So let's take Infinite
because I
Fleet,
think
right?
Ethereum lives on. Like even if a game,
It could,
even if
sure.
they'd fail. Like I feel like Gary Vee has kind of even started talking about this recently, where he's like, I'm going to go back and look at 2017 NFTs and revive one of those projects.
Yeah, that could happen. So I mean, I don't know how CryptoKitties is doing these days. They had that big boom, but I just wonder if you've got a big game. Let's take Infinite Fleet for example. If it fails, right? If Infinite Fleet totally failed, then the ship, the NFT that you would buy, that would be worthless, right? Because no one's playing the game anymore. It doesn't really. You have ownership, sure. But who's going to render it? I mean, someone might go ahead and do it, but it does. I mean, people still run their own servers on old games that have died previously, right? I mean, there's still like Battlestar Galactica Online still has little servers that go on. I guess my point is that I think yes, there's this potential, and people have to come together, but I think that sometimes, and not all the time, it gets a little bit overblown to say you have full ownership and it can go here, it can go there, it can go everywhere. It's like, well, yes, only where it's accepted, and that in the first place could have always existed without the blockchain, right? I think people could always have said, oh well, you take your game save file to another game. That's I guess, and again, this might be my limited understanding, but I don't understand how the blockchain solves the developer from allowing something.
I don't think it solves
because
that. I think it solves the incentive alignment, right? Because you're right. Gaming developing companies could have always have done what you just said, allow other items into their thing, but the incentive alignment wasn't there. But I think that like Ethereum as a perpetual motion machine, as for a lack of a better term, I think that it has kind of fixed that problem, because now anyone says, well, I'm going to go build on top of Ethereum now because it allows us some sort of ownership mechanism that we can trace these things. Like, do you get what I'm saying or no? I didn't really finish that thought.
Are you saying that, like, so let's say I don't know, a project dies, but it was on Ethereum, so it's still able to be kind of revitalized. Are you saying that someone could just kind of go back and do that, right? They could go and pick up that project and say, okay, well, no one liked it then, but maybe they will now, and it's open source, so we can do it again, right?
Yes.
So I guess my pushback to that would be, well, again, in the first place, would you not have to have built a game in the first place that allows the openness of that, an open source project, essentially, right? To say that, oh yeah, well, Command and Conquer died, but Westwood has allowed it to be open source, so we can make another Command and Conquer game, Command and Conquer 5. And my question is, in the first place, does a developer not need to have the outset of, we're going to allow this to be open IP? Because you can't just use the blockchain to, I don't know, take a Blizzard game or something like this and render their IP, because they're going to slap a lawsuit on you, right?
Yeah.
You need to, on the outset, you need to have the idea of open source gaming or something like that, which I think has always existed as an option. I could be being very naive here.
No.
We're exploring. I think we're exploring here, Eduardo.
I can certainly say I'm the fool in the room. By that I mean I know how much I don't know, and I think that the beauty of all this is like we'll find out. We'll see how it ends up going.
Well, I hope there's some comments. I'd love to hear, because this is always, a few blockchain Telegram groups, and I've thrown this out, and I've really struggled to get an answer to this problem. Right, is what I've just said, like just the open IP idea. Like it can't be. I think Decentraland's different. I might be wrong, but I think Decentraland is more of an engine that allows anyone to create something that's interoperable with that environment, right? So that's fair enough. That's an engine. That makes perfect sense. So anyone who wants to go into that's ongoing. And I suppose you could say the same thing for Ethereum, right? Anyone can build off it. But in the specific game asset, in the first place, you just have to have a developer that's willing to engage with that open IP idea, right? I think.
Sure, 100%. That part's 100%. I think that's definitely fair to say. The game developer definitely has to be willing to engage in that. So I think that's 100.
Are there any comments on YouTube? I'm curious if anyone's got any thoughts on this.
No one has actually chimed in, but I do want to keep the questions going, and we're getting close to the hour here. Sorry, I'm just because some of these have been knocking them out as we go. I posed this one. We've kind of been talking about this, but I'm just going to ask you straight up. Do you guys know of any other games that are building on Liquid? And then how do you see Liquid competing with Lightning?
I don't know of any. I don't think so, because I'm pretty sure Samson would. I don't think so. I think Samson would probably be telling me right away if they had, because obviously he's very close to the Liquid network. No, I don't know. I think it's early days. You said compete with Lightning. Well, I don't think it's in competition. I think it augments it. Blockstream, obviously, their agenda is to push Bitcoin, to push Lightning, to push Liquid. I think it all fits nicely together. Now, I can't go into the technical detail of exactly how that would work, but I believe the idea is that Liquid facilitates Lightning and it makes it easier to run a node. That's what I have heard, but again, I don't have in-depth knowledge of this, I'm afraid. So I'm gonna have to make that a short answer, I'm afraid.
No, that's perfectly fine.
There's no competition. I mean, they're going to work together. I mean, it's all the incentives are aligned on that side. Yeah.
In what ways is Infinite Fleet revitalizing the MMO genre of gaming?
Oof, big question. Right. Okay. Let's get in there. So MMO, you mentioned a moment ago that RuneScape was a metaverse, right? You thought that it's this other immersive environment, I imagine. I mean, I used to play RuneScape as well. I did it while studying, two monitors. And I don't like to use metaverse too much, as I said. I think it's a little bit overused. I think it's a little bit of a buzzword in some cases, but certainly as an immersive second world, a second life, a second universe as such. MMOs, that's very much what they do. I think that most MMO players feel they want to have volition in this world. They want to be heroes. They want to have legacy. They want to be part of these incredible events. We leverage that to the max with Infinite Fleet. We hit the core motivation of MMO gamers to say you are important in our game. So that goes along with our directed narrative feature that I spoke to you previously about the branching story arcs, but also in the structure, the social structure of the what we call divisions, our guilds in the game. So a guild leader might have a space station, for example, and they will be able to give quests to people in their guild. We will give them the tools to be able to actually create their own quests to attack, Atrox or whatever, to gain INF, to gain other resources, to build territory. So we'll, let's say a really powerful guild who has, lots of players and everything, have all these resources. They'll build things like maybe Dyson spheres or huge, system spanning space stations, defense platforms, mining installations, all this kind of thing. And that's a cooperative experience. And obviously everyone's going to be kind of written in to who took part and who was part of that. And I think that's really important. We're driving a co-op experience where you feel, yes, I contributed to something awesome. I contributed to this mega space station. How cool is that? And then on the next level, we talk about the NFT ships. One thing that we're looking at as well is writing into, using open timestamps, I believe, writing into the ledger that this ship took part in the battle event Alpha Centauri. This, it got upgraded at this time, or Ninja, the famous streamer, owned this ship for a while. You know what I mean? You've got this ledger of information. So the core motivation, the core thing that we're hitting at the heart is forge your legacy, right? This is your story. It's like D&D. We don't, it's not a linear story that we shove down your throat. It's like you're writing your story here, and a lot of it's getting recorded. And that's, Samson always said he wants to be able to tell his grandkids about what he did on Infinite Fleet. That's kind of the kind of plan, because MMOs have always been like that. There are these big things that happen, and people were part of it, like the Leroy Jenkins thing. I don't know if you saw that. It was a big meme, quite funny. Ultima Online had this thing which was a bit of a developer fuck up, and one of their main NPCs got killed, which wasn't supposed to get killed, and all the people were there at the time had this event that they all remember, and it's continuously memed. It's that like you said before, continuation, the immortality of the ledger of the game as such. So that's what we're driving here, and that's because we think that MMOs, what really matters is the social experience, and of course the environment that you're in, the immersive environment that you're in. So the story is important, the aesthetics are important, but really the most important thing is the player, the social environment, the social systems.
Do you see a world in which people have full-time jobs that are like gaming jobs?
Could. Well, I mean, they do now. I mean, you know what I mean?
For sure.
When I was a kid, I mean, I have a friend who, God, I mean, he just used to call going to sleep logging off. I mean, he was playing games like 18, 19 hours a day. It was insane. He gained a lot of weight in a very short amount of time. Anyway, so he was speaking to me. He was like, "Oh, you're going off to university and all that." And I wish I could make money playing games. And at that time, it wasn't really possible. Twitch wasn't a thing. YouTube was, YouTube was around, but it wasn't really as prolific. Now, yes. And with, yes, like you say, blockchain games, I mean, people already are, right? I mean, you see it all the time on YouTube.
Sure
people are making money on Axie and other things. Of course it's going to happen.
I saw somewhere on your website about Infinite Fleet being described as a free and open economy. What does this mean?
Well, it's player driven. I mean, the idea is that the INF token allows peer-to-peer, like you said, permissionless trade, right? So you can take your NFT ships, you can take INF, outside of the specific ecosystem of the game, and people can trade with each other. So when I used to play Guild Wars when I was a kid. That was my big MMO. And one time I illegally bought some gold in that game, and it was terrifying, man. We were sweating because it was like you'd go on this website and they say, okay, meet me at this place at this time and whatever. You've already paid the money, right, on some black market, and you're like, is he going to turn up? Is he going to turn up? Is he going to turn up? And he was like 5 minutes late. Oh, sorry, connection issues. We are open with the market, with that tertiary market. So basically players can sell and buy the in-game items with each other, and nothing passes through us on that front. We're not monetizing off that. And that's how it's an open free player market. And we're designing the game in such a way. Jason, our chief creative, he comes from Relic, and he's worked on some incredible games. He's designing the game in such a way that using INF will certainly be something that is advantageous for players. So he really wants to drive this marketplace where players are trading in between each other for various resources. Even space stations you could probably trade on there. So yeah, it's just going to be an open market. Really, we believe in the free market economy. That's the plan.
I have just a couple more questions for you, and then
sure.
I'll let you go. This second to last one is something we kind of already touched on, but maybe I think it's just a good question to kind of end on, super like kind of optimistic outlook. What do you see how do you see cryptocurrencies impacting the future of gaming? And how is it going to impact the future of game development?
Well, we have a pretty specific ethos, right? I mean, you can see what we're doing is a little bit different to a lot of the projects in the space, right? And our belief is just the freedom of that economy. You know what I mean? That allowing for that open trade. We believe very much in having currencies running through games that are portable. Which, well, I say it's different. I think a lot of other game companies are doing that. And I think that paradigm is going to do a lot for both the developers and for the gamers. I think it's very much a win-win. Because, people are going to want to play games where they feel rewarded, both, just in the fun and, of course, the other rewards that players can potentially get from playing these games. It's with more and more gamers making money through Twitch and YouTube and all that kind of thing these days, it's becoming commonplace, like you said, that people could become full-time gamers. And that could be their job. And with the gig economy these days and everything going more and more digital, remote work forced by COVID, all these kind of things, everything's kind of aligning to this point, I feel. And like you said, you got into crypto because you were originally a gamer. So it's a natural alignment. We're used to handling digital economies. Gamers are massively used to handling digital economies. Kids these days buy V-Bucks, right? The 14, 12-year-olds, they buy V-Bucks. My stepson, he plays this Chinese, Wang Zhurong Yao it's called, MMO. And they're like trading with each other, like skins and things and borrowing money with each other and whatever else for these digital items. And it's just a natural evolution. And I think that's, obviously we're in the early stages. Some will succeed, some will fail. There's no doubt about that, but it's going to mature over the next 5-10 years. Yeah. And I think it's going to be quick with the rate of adoption in cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin in general. I think it's adopting faster than the internet did at the time, so this is a matter of, I mean, we're already there, I think, in most cases, right?
100%. We are already there. And I think that, Exordium and Pixelmatic and Infinite Fleet are a great example of how we are already there. And Chris, thank you so much for your time. I learned a tremendous amount, and it's interviews like this that just get me super excited about our industry, about gaming, just about the future. Honestly, I have this like kind of ongoing thing on my YouTube channel where I'm building a portfolio for my son. Like investment.
Nice.
And it's like all like nice. Gaming stuff, because I know he's going to be a little nerd like his dad. And, but
wonderful.
What did I not ask you that I should have, what questions did we not get into?
Well, I'm going to do a bit of selfless self promo here, but I think one thing that maybe I didn't go into enough is just kind of like how awesome our team is. I think that's something that I really didn't go into.
Please, before you say that, because before you say that, I'm going to jump in because I was actually, as I was doing my research before, I had taken note of the gentleman who had just become y'all's art director, essentially, and I saw you guys were able to couldn't steal him away from a big competitor and someone who had has a lot of experience, and the artwork is phenomenal. And I think that artwork is just such an important part of the game. So I had that originally in my questions, and I took it out. But now I'm gonna
no worries.
Gloat on your team and such. So please do.
No, thank you. Yes, no. Because I think this is for our company, and I imagine a few people listening are considering whether or not to invest, and I guess one of the things that I would say is definitely look at the team that we have, because I think it's the strongest in this industry at the moment. I might be wrong. There might be some great projects out there that are coming up that I haven't heard of yet. But you mentioned the director of art, Wayne. I mean, 24 years of technical art experience. He was on the original. There was this show called Reboot, which was one of the first 3D model kind of TV shows. It was really awesome. But he worked on Warhammer 40K franchise, Company of Heroes, all these kind of things. It's really, and like you say, the art's beautiful. I mean, he didn't do the artwork actually. The artwork, the concept art that you saw, that's from a French guy called Dofresh is his channel, and he works with us. He's one of our staff as such, and under Wayne's direction is what you'll see. So Wayne's direction is all about this 80s nostalgic kind of very vivid colors. It's really quite beautiful. I think I agree with you. But then I mentioned briefly Jason, our chief creative, who again decades of experience in game design. A lot of AAA games that he's released. I'm trying to think. We recently got a guy who comes from like Coca-Cola and Philips, who's all about a technical VP who's all about scaling businesses. So he's helping us with making sure that the money's put into the right place in a way, and making sure our team is scaling very well. I mean, we've got 50 people in the team at the moment, most coming from AAA background. I'm just trying to think of another. Nicola, one of our sort of lead engineers, previously worked on the Siberia series. You might not have heard of it. It's kind of like a AA indie game, very, very, very big AA indie game, Siberia, that does very well. And he's just pumped out indie games. Oh, and Jeff, our one of our other engineers, Jeff Posey, he was on the original Ultima Online team. So he was the third programmer they ever hired. And Ultima Online is like the first MMO, basically. Well, the first one that was popular, anyway. And he's done everything. He was on PS Home, he was Xbox. He's done loads of stuff. I mean, you can just rack off the stuff. So the point is that I'm trying to make is led, of course, by Samson, and our directors are ex-Ubisoft. So Keith and Steve, they were both 20 years as like top executives in Ubisoft. They were basically responsible for the East Asian success of the company. They released Rainbow Six Siege, Assassin's Creed,
That's awesome.
all these massive titles. I mean, so they hold our feet to the fire if things are going a bit haywire. So we've structured the company very much for success. We are in this for the long term here. This is not a sort of pump and dump scheme, to use the naughty words in crypto. Yeah. This is very much a long-term effort. Infinite Fleet's here to stay for decades to come, and also other games as well. We intend to take the architecture of Infinite Fleet that we're building and make other games, like maybe a pirate game, high fantasy, whatever it might be. That's the long-term view here.
Yeah, I get the feeling that like one day I'm gonna look back on this interview and be like, I don't like we were so early days, and like the fact that I was like able to be like part of this beginning, like honestly, I truthfully mean that. Like I'm gonna be keeping up with Exordium and Pixelmatic and obviously Infinite Fleet, and very excited to get on the alpha. Hopefully I can have you back, very soon. And
let's play the game together, man.
Yeah, I would like that.
Let's play alpha together.
Yeah, I'm down for that, 100%. So you guys out there, the dorks, that's what we're called at Staked Podcast. You guys will have that to look forward to. And so, Chris, thank you so much for your time. And we'll chat very soon.
Eduardo, it was fantastic. Thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Same. Take care.
Take care.